Hi, everyone. We're back. Hopefully, we're on Facebook this time. Leanne will join us in just a minute as soon as she gets the link. But if you see us on Facebook, let us know. Hey, Leanne, I think we're live. It doesn't say we're not on Facebook. So hopefully, we're on this time. But if you can let us know, we will start again for YouTubers and Facebook people. We're talking about navigating guilt and embracing self-compassion. So we see a YouTuber there, but we don't see someone from Facebook, but it says we're live to Facebook. So hopefully we are live to Facebook. Julie, if you could give us a heads up and let us know that we are on, that would be great. I think she did say, she just gave me a thumbs up. So hi YouTube, hi Michelle, glad to see you here. Yay, Deborah, you're from Facebook. We're so happy to see you. And I see Janice is there too. Thank you, Tamara. We're sorry, something's going on with our scheduling with StreamYard without hooking to Facebook. And so we will try to fix that so this doesn't keep happening. But thank you for showing up. And thank you, Coach Leanne, for being so tech savvy that you could get off and get on as fast as you could. I couldn't do it myself, but I'm glad you could do it.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Leslie.
Yeah, Leanne, where are you now? Are you in Montana?
I am in Idaho right now. Idaho. I've got a beautiful view out my window. I am in Priest Lake, Idaho. So I am looking out at a lovely lake. It's cool temperatures and beautiful evergreens all around me. So that's where I am. Good to see you, Lisa, Melissa. Hi, Kayla, Tamara. Yay, we've got friends out here, Leslie.
Yes, yay, we're alive. That makes me feel good. So today we're kind of following up to what we talked about a little bit yesterday in terms of, yesterday we talked about self-care. Today we're talking about self-compassion. That's a little different because we feel, maybe it's okay to steward ourselves because we need sleep, we need to eat. But what about feeling compassion towards yourself? What does that bring up in you? Is that something easy for you to do, or is that something that makes you feel selfish or guilty, like I don't deserve compassion? I need to whip myself over the back if I make a mistake, or if I do something wrong, or if I gain 3 pounds, or if I say the stupid thing on Facebook, I'm just going to beat myself up. Is that what you tend to do? Or do you have compassion for yourself? And let me ask, well, let's answer that question first. Yes or no? Is it something you could find easy to have compassion for yourself? You might have compassion for other people, but what about for you? Can you find compassion for you when you mess up, when you fall short, when you disappoint yourself? Guilty, Roberta says. So easy for me to encourage others, but so hard to give myself. Yeah.
Indeed. And I see it says it's a true struggle. It can be a struggle to have compassion on yourself. There are areas in my life, I'm a limited human being. And sometimes when my temperature goes up, I cannot always show up as my best self. And then I can feel a little bit guilty. And so it is hard to have compassion on myself at times. Mm-hmm. One thing I know is the Lord wants me to have compassion on myself. Mm-hmm. He's calling me to that.
Yeah, I grew up in a home, and maybe you can relate to this, where there wasn't much compassion for anybody who made a mistake. So if you made a mistake, everybody was ragging on you. And if you made a mistake, you were ragging on yourself, and you were ragging on them as well. It was a household that had a lot of criticism and contempt. And even mocking and joking, even if they meant well. It was just a family that didn't handle mistakes well. And so it is hard, even now, this many years into my own growth and my own healing. I have tons of compassion for other people, but it's really hard for me to have compassion for myself. Even, I don't know, Leanne, it's so hard when I look in the mirror and I see myself getting old. Like I drew that picture of that old lady because that's what I want to embody, but I'm like, oh, you're getting so old. Look at all those wrinkles. Look at your skin. It looks so dry. All of those kind of things. Just that simple thing. It's hard to just say, you're doing pretty good for this age. It's really-
I know. And then I love that, Leslie. And we're just, going to be real here. Sometimes I have to go up to the mirror, and this is my self-compassion. There she is. Oh,
I
that's
remember what
the
she
girl
looked
I
like.
remember, right? That's the girl I remember. And so, sometimes bringing in a little bit of laughter helps release some of that guilt and shame. And it's like, wow. And I think sometimes self compassion is having a little giggle at ourselves when we can get so hard on ourselves. Anybody else, think that? We sometimes, I think you and I have talked about this a lot. We've talked about this a lot, that sometimes the hardest voice on that we hear is the voice inside of our head
Yeah.
over and over again, that critical spirit that we can have on ourselves.
Yeah, we talk about destructive relationships on Facebook a lot, and most of the time we're talking about someone here. We're talking about your husband or your parent or your brother or sister or your boss or whoever is ragging on you or criticizing you or gaslighting you. But today we just want to talk about how you do it to you. So we're going to be doing a workshop, and I mentioned this yesterday because the workshop is about people out there like your husband, like your mother, like your child, when they're not okay. Maybe they're addicted to porn. Maybe they're struggling with depression. Maybe they're having a lot of angry outbursts. Maybe they're lacking, wisdom and good judgment, and they're spending stupid money on stupid things, and you're anxious about that. Maybe they're overeating, and you're worried for their health. And we have these people in our life that we care about and we love, and we see them making bad decisions. And when they're not okay, even when they're not necessarily not okay with us, but when they're just not okay, we're not okay. And when they're not okay with us, we're especially not okay. When they're angry with us, when they're disappointed with us, when they're hurt by us, we're not okay. We then beat ourselves up like, what did I do wrong? What could I do differently? And so we're going to be doing this workshop on August 17th. When he's not okay, or when this person's not okay out there, I'm not okay either. And how do I figure out what's my problem to deal with? Because what we do when that person isn't okay with us is that we beat ourselves up. We have no self-compassion. And then we think it's our job to fix their problem in order for us to feel better. And that doesn't work. And so we're not talking about that directly today, but it's the same process that when we can't fix their problem, then what do? We beat ourselves up again. There's no compassion on ourselves when we're not able to do something that we think we should do. And one of them is be perfect. To never make a mistake, to be unflawed. And it's just not possible.
Oh, Leslie, thank you for saying that. Thank you. We are limited human beings. And I think if I could just say one thing right at the get-go here, give yourself permission to have limits. That is one of the most compassionate gifts that you can give yourself. I've had to give it to myself. I love doing fun things, and I love going fun places and experiencing new things and adventure. And then I have a limit. And then I have a limit. And, I remember when I was actually in coaching school several years ago, Leslie, and one of my coaches actually said something really powerful. She said to me, Leanne, it's perfectly understandable that you would have low energy right now with everything that you are going through. Someone actually heard me, showed me some empathy, and it really gave me permission to say, oh, you mean I can breathe and I can be me in this space, limited. I don't have to do it all, be it all right now. It was very, very freeing. And that was kind of my moment of where, you know what? Yeah, I can give myself a really big hug right now and experience some of that self-compassion.
Another area of this is really important. How many of you have had a hard time forgiving yourself for something? Like forgiving yourself for messing up, or forgiving yourself for letting someone down, or forgiving yourself for sinning, doing something bad, having an affair, blowing off your mouth in a very unkind way. And you're really struggling with guilt around that. And you're having a really hard time forgiving yourself for that. How many of you would be willing to be honest enough? You don't have to tell us what it is, but just say, me. Me, I struggle. I've had that problem. Like, I have had a problem with forgiving myself for messing up on something, not just, being old or those kind of things, but it's not just about, compassion, but something that you really do wrong, something that you do sin or you do mess up or you do fall short. Yeah, yeah. And so this is such a critical aspect, because the truth is, the Bible says in James 3:2, for example, we all stumble in many ways. There is no perfect person. If you could be perfect, you wouldn't need a savior. There would have been no need for Jesus to come. So just one of the things that was so freeing to me, and it doesn't give me license because it's such a beautiful thing, is to realize I'm never going to be perfect. And so when I get mad at myself, when I say, "Oh, I can't believe you do that. How could you be so stupid? Why would you say that? That was so sinful." Of course, because I'm a sinner. Of course, because I'm going to mess up. So same for other people. We can have compassion for them when they mess up, including a destructive husband. He may lie to you. He may be mean to you. He may be doing things to you. As long as you see it and you say, wow, that's not who I want to be, and I want to change that, and I'm willing to work on that. It's not that I'm ever going to be perfect. It's just that I'm going to be compassionate toward my weaknesses and others' weaknesses too. God tells us to be that way. As long as the other person recognizes that those things are wrong, and I recognize those, they're not okay. They're not okay, but I'm not so shocked. Like, oh, how could I be so judgmental? I'm supposed to be the spiritual leader here. Oh, how could I be so angry and say that? That's not who I'm supposed to. Because I'm still human, right? Because I'm still human. And it's not about forgiving myself for being human. It's about accepting myself for being human and not having these unrealistic expectations that I should be better than I am.
Amen. I love that, Leslie. And, I can even just think of different times in my life when forgiveness of myself led to my next level of transformation. It led to shaking off some of those unhealthy habits or behaviors or thoughts or unregulated emotions because I was able to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And I can also think of some times in my life where I was able to forgive somebody else, and it led us to a new level in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for bringing up that forgiveness piece. I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. And even if we just dial it down a bit, maybe we can't forgive yet, but maybe we can just accept. Like, I'm going to give you a statement, ladies, that many of you may say to your children, that I want you to really commit to stop saying that. And the statement, because we say it to ourselves, how could you do that? What's wrong with you? You should have known better. How many of you have said that to your kids and to yourself when in fact you didn't know better? When in fact you couldn't do better in the moment? When in fact you're a limited, finite human being? I should have known better. How should you have known better? How should you have known better? Did you know all this ahead of time? How should your kids have known better? They're going to learn from their mistakes. And so when we give ourselves these should attacks, you're shoulding on yourself. Hear me correctly. You're shoulding on yourself. You're shoulding on other people as if they should never make a mistake. They should never be inadequate. They should never not know. They should never fail. That's just not realistic. That's just not reality. Healthy people are not perfect people. Healthy people are just regular people who own their mistakes when they make them and not beat themselves up for it because they shouldn't have known better. Maybe they didn't know better, but they can learn. They can learn better.
Leslie, thank you for that. Healthy people are not perfect people. Healthy people own their mistakes. That ownership, when you mess up, fess up. And then,
have compassion for ourselves.
Exactly.
For messing up, not entitlement. See, and I think this is like, it's not entitling me just to be a loser and a screw up and a fool and hurt other people because I had a hard childhood. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I had a hard childhood, and maybe I didn't learn some of the things I was supposed to learn growing up. That makes it harder as an adult to function as maturely as I might like to. And so maybe I'm a little bit further behind than other people who may have had some of those better lessons, and maybe not. But how can I be compassionate and say, you're doing the best you can right now. And maybe tomorrow you'll learn to do better. But right now, you did the best you knew how. And it didn't turn out well. So maybe you could learn to do better next time. And that's okay. That's okay. I was telling Leanne, I'm working on my elephant picture and I messed up her ear. You see how I'm trying to make the background all fuzzy? Well, I was making the background fuzzy around her ear, and all of a sudden I lost the edge of her ear. I thought, where did her ear end and where does the background start? And I lost her edge. And so then I made a new edge and it was way too big. And so that's what you just do. I don't know better. I don't know how to do better, but I'm learning, and I can see the mistake and I can fix it and have compassion. Not, you shouldn't have messed this up, and why are you doing it this way? I don't know better. I'm just learning. Can you be that way with yourself?
That is so powerful. That is such a beautiful way to frame the struggles that we're going through, is that, we're learning and we're growing. And I often, I've been saying this to myself a lot this summer, is that I am growing through what I am going through.
Mm-hmm.
I am growing through what I'm going through. I'm not going to beat myself up. And I know Leanne 3.0 is around the corner. And, there's something really beautiful there. And so if I can have that self-compassion to give myself room to breathe and give myself room to grow, that is a gift I can give myself in the moment, because I blow it too. I say things I shouldn't say sometimes. I do things I shouldn't do. And what will I do with that in the process? How will I navigate that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I want to press pause for a minute. I want all of you to just take a deep breath. And I want to put your hand on your heart. And what if you just put your hand on your heart and you just patted your heart and said, it's okay. I know you're trying. You wouldn't be on this Facebook Live if you weren't trying. It's okay. I know you're working hard. I know you're trying hard. What does that feel like for you? What does that feel like to you? To just give yourself an atta girl. It's okay.
And we can see our bodies, we can feel our bodies, we can feel our hearts, we can put breath into our hearts and into our bodies in the moment, and give ourselves some of that love that we so easily can extend to other people.
Mary said something very helpful here. I want you all to hear it. A friend of mine wrote down every negative thing she says to herself. Then her counselor told her to set her 7-year-old daughter in front of her and repeat it all to her, and she couldn't do it. We would never say those things to a child. Why do we say them to ourselves? Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Heaven says she's crying, and Paula says that exercise was powerful, peaceful, takes the weight off. I do that often. I just put my hands on my heart and I just say, it's okay. It's okay. And I pat myself as I would pat that 7-year-old child. That's right. That I'm doing the best I know how. I'm not going to keep beating myself up for not knowing, for not being perfect, for getting older, for gaining 2 pounds. I'm not going to beat myself up for not living up to everyone's expectations, for having people disappointed in me. Right?
Leslie, I love how, we were talking, and then all of a sudden, so brilliantly, you said, let's pause. And let's just do self-compassion, not just talk about it, but just do it.
Yeah. And it's not hard. all you have to do is put your hand here.
That's right.
And give yourself a little pat. Lorraine said, I've never felt this compassion for myself. Yeah, I didn't either until I was much older. I totally understand. And I still struggle with it. I have to remind myself, because my first modus operandi is to beat myself up and be critical of myself.
Yeah.
Right? That's my first default mode. But I'm learning to stop and pause and notice that I'm doing that. Because once I notice that I'm doing it, just like if I notice that I'm messing up my picture, I can change it. If I don't notice it until I take a picture of it or step back, well, then I notice it, then I can still change it. I can still fix it, right?
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's interesting because, just like you said, we pat a child. Sometimes when we give ourselves a hug and even just sway or rock a little bit, that motion, just that gentleness to get our parasympathetic nervous system calmed down. It brings oxygen into our hearts, our brains, and our bodies. Our spinal cord needs that as well. And, our bodies are so miraculously created that we can struggle with extra weight, extra whatever. But God uniquely created you for your body to support you, and learning to engage those tools to allow our bodies to help care for us. Sometimes when our brain is in fire drive. So if we can push that pause, it's a really beautiful gift that we can give.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Leanne and I have been interested in some new neuroscience and neurobiology that Leanne's talking about, and that, how sometimes when you're around someone who's really negative and critical, you can feel the energy, right? You can feel that negative energy, and that negative energy impacts you. We're going to be talking about that in the workshop, of how when they're not okay and they're down and they're critical or complaining or angry, you can feel that energy. I call them, they have bad vibes. I don't know what it is, but it is electromagnetic energy. And neuroscience is now saying that our heart radiates our electromagnetic energy all around us. And as I've begun to understand why the Lord tells us to guard our heart above all else, for it's the wellspring of life, because our heart center is our energy center. It's not here. There's more information that goes from the heart to the brain than the brain to the heart. And so that I didn't know that. And so we need to guard our heart. And so practicing self-compassion and actually holding your heart and practicing having loving thoughts towards yourself and others can change the energy in a room, can change the energy in your body.
It can. And I've been doing a lot of this work for a lot of years. And I with COVID, I just kind of had to giggle a little bit, because this energy is a contagion. It's sometimes one of the worst things that we can do. And so being aware how we show up is very impactful. And then being aware of how other people are showing up as well. We don't need to absorb all of their icky. We can observe it. And part of my self-compassion is learning that. How can I observe without soaking it all in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're not paying attention, and I just want you to think of a specific time in your life. I went to a funeral, and I didn't even know the person. I just went because a relative of mine knew the person. I was going with them. And everyone is sobbing, and I'm like, and I'm sobbing, not because I felt any personal attachment to this person, but because their energy of grieving was affecting me, and I was grieving for their grief, right? That my compassion for their broken hearts. I didn't have a broken heart. I didn't know the person, but my compassion for their broken heart, it was contagious, that energy. And how many times have you been in a room where someone is just giggling like a child? I watch YouTube videos of giggling children, and I'm laughing with them. I have no idea what they're laughing at, but they're giggling and they're so cute. And that energy, even through Instagram or wherever they show them, or the cute little dog videos, however they are, it impacts you, right? And so understand that we're giving each other energy. And Leanne is making a really important point. When someone is emitting a lot of negative energy, Just like if someone had COVID-19 back 2 years ago, you would do something to protect yourself. Even if you love that person and you wanted to care for that person, you would put gloves and a mask on because you would protect yourself from absorbing their virus as best you could. In the same way, self-compassion for yourself is not mean. If you were to put gloves and a mask on for someone who had TB or another infectious staph infection or whatever, you're caring for them the best you can with good boundaries. In the same way, when someone's emitting a lot of negative energy towards you, either towards you or just in the room, they're in a bad mood, they're cranky, they're blaming you for everything. Boy, oh boy, is that energy contagious. And it's just easy to get right back at them. And you weren't feeling that before you got involved in this, but now you are. And it just starts to explode. And so how do you learn to be compassionate with good boundaries so that you're not being infected with their energy that's poisonous?
Yeah, and sometimes we forget that saying no to ourselves is a boundary. No, I'm not going to sit here anymore. No, I'm not going to listen to that anymore. It could be as easy as if something's on the television that you don't want to watch, you can click the off button.
Mhm.
No, I'm not going to watch that. No, I'm not going to watch a, heavy duty war movie before I go to bed because I'm not going to sleep. No, that's a boundary that I'm setting on myself. Other people can watch it. And so
But even
sometimes
because that energy impacts your ability to sleep.
it does. And the more we get to know ourselves and understand that we're limited human beings, the more self-compassion we can give ourselves.
Mhm.
And when we understand that other people are limited too, we can extend a little bit more compassion to them without enabling bad behavior to continue. It's both and. I want to
Yes.
make that super clear. It's both and. We can be compassionate and not enable at the same time.
Yeah.
And
And
I think
that's,
that's really important.
it really is, because what happens in our relationships with others or even toward ourselves. So let's say that we've had a really hard day and we've had a really bad thing. And so what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I'm going to be compassionate. So I guess I will eat that whole pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, or, oh, I guess I need that whole bottle of wine. And so we're indulging or we're enabling unhealthy behaviors in calling it self-compassion, right? That's not self-compassion. It might be self-comfort, but it's not self-compassion, right? So self-compassion that moment may be, what do I really need? Maybe I just need to go to bed. Maybe I need a hot bath. Maybe I need to call a friend, right? The other stuff is only going to cause another kind of problem. It'll solve the problem in the short run, but it's going to cause another problem when I wake up and have a hangover, or I do something stupid because I drank too much. Those kind of things are really important to pay attention to, not to condemn yourself, but to have compassion. Wow, I'm self-soothing in a way that's actually harmful to myself. In the same way, we do that with others. We show compassion to others in a very dysfunctional way by enabling their bad behavior to continue, right? By enabling their destructive behaviors to continue to harm us, thinking that that's biblical love, when in fact it's fear-based love. I'm afraid to have a boundary because what if they don't like it? What if they get worse? What if they blame me? All of those kind of things. And we're going to be unpacking all of that in the workshop for you. So if you haven't signed up yet, we have Leanne, we have over, I think over 1,500 people signed up already. So it's a very workshop. We just opened it up 2 days ago. So there's a lot of people who want to come to the workshop. So if you haven't signed up for the workshop yet, you want to save your seat and you want to go to that website, lesliebernick.com/join webinar. And let me just say one more thing about that. I hope that you're finding value in these Facebook Lives. And you will find so much more value if you attend the workshop. And let me tell you why, versus just watching a replay. There will be a replay if you can't attend live, but you won't get an access to the replay. It's off social media, so it's very private. But you won't get access to the replay if you don't sign up, because we have no place to mail that replay if we don't know your email address. So you sign up with your email that gives us access to you so we can say, here's the link for the workshop if you're going to attend live. It's August 17th, both at noon Eastern time as well as 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. But if you can't show up, yes, you will get a replay. But here's the difference. For those of you who are live on a Facebook, there's a different experience here, isn't there? By talking to us, by asking questions, by being present in the room, seeing the chat, hearing other people's story a little bit, not fully, but a little bit of what's going on. This is a public Facebook page, so you understand you don't want to share your whole life story. In the webinar room, it's off social media, and you get this experience of talking with one another, talking with the coaches, asking your questions, being live, and then talking with me afterwards. The webinar itself will take about 60, 65 minutes. And then I usually stay for another hour, 2 hours sometimes, just talking with you, answering your questions in a private place. You don't get that experience watching the replay. You watch a 45-minute condensed the right way, it's 45 minutes. It's like reading a newspaper article or actually being at the scene of what's happening. It's a very different experience. And so if this is your issue, and it really would be helpful for you to understand how to differentiate your problem, their problem, and then the relationship problem, which problem gives you the most bang for the buck if you work on it, and how do you work on it? Attend the workshop live so just schedule it now. You've got 2 weeks. It's a Thursday, noon Eastern time, 7:30 p.m. You can get in your car. You can drive to a quiet place. You can watch it on your phone. You can bring your computer with you, bring your charger, do what you need to do so that you can watch it live off social media, on a private space that you can get the most value. There's a workbook that goes with it that you will get ahead of time. So please really make a commitment to show compassion for yourself and give yourself a gift of 3, just like you're giving yourself a gift of an hour being here in Facebook. And sometimes we're long, we're an hour and a half, 2 hours. Same thing with the workshop, but it's all private. It's not on our public Facebook page. And so it's a very different experience. I really hope that if this is you and you need to be there, be there. Give yourself that gift of compassion and say, hey, you need to show up and you need to just schedule that time. Don't multitask. If you had to pay me for a 3-hour consult, you'd be paying a lot of money. I'm gifting you all of this content, all the workshop, everything. You can have it. I want you to grow. I really do. But you have to put some skin in the game by showing up, giving your time.
Yeah, and show up and, carve out that time, block it out, turn off all other distractions and get there. You will be very glad that you did.
Yeah. Yeah, Trish, I don't know if you were at the last workshop. She goes, do the workshop. My life has been completely changed. So I think if that's you and this would be helpful for you, or you have a friend who you think would be wanting to watch it with you, watch it with a girlfriend. You can invite anybody you want who would be helpful and be helped by watching it. So I really encourage you to sign up and watch it. So we want to get to some questions. But before we get to some questions, I'd like you to put in the chat, based on what we've talked about so far, what's your biggest aha moment for you? Based on what we've talked about so far, what's your biggest aha moment for you? What is the Lord speaking to you about right now?
I'm so looking forward. I'd love to tell you, Leslie, because of the work. And I think taking a moment, grab a pen, grab some paper and make a note. There, you're all hanging on here with us. We've been on for, a good bit here. You've been hearing from each other. You've been hearing from us. What is your gift? What is the gift that you really feel like the Lord wants you to deposit right into the depth of your heart on guilt, self-compassion, navigating it, giving yourself some love? Maybe it was that moment to pause and pat your heart. Maybe it was that self-hug.
Yeah. Black Bear says I shouldn't have not known better. Yeah. Shouldn't have not known better. That shouldn't. I should have. Yeah. Angel singing to me, I am worthy.
I'm growing through what I'm going through. Yeah, Cindy, that I'm telling you, that's a game changer for me. It's really helped me to stop beating myself up for what I didn't know or when I didn't put my best foot forward.
How much compassion I need from me. Yeah, we all need compassion. We all need compassion. Yeah. Trish, I'd love to hear from you. You're certainly welcome to email the team at leslie@leslievernick.com, and we'd love to hear your story. Joyce wants to know where the link is for August 17th. So you are, if you're not watching this live, because it's on the screen, the link is on the screen, but I'm going to tell you it. It's Leslie Vernick, which is my name, leslievernick.com. So you already know that, or you wouldn't have gotten on YouTube or wherever you are. It's leslievernick.com, and then just put a /, and it's all one word, join webinar. Join webinar. leslievernick.com / join webinar. Okay, we've got some questions.
We do. And we've got a long one. May I read it to you?
Sure.
It's a long one. And I have a hard time with really long questions and having an answer, and you're brilliant at it. So, all right, here we go. My husband has stopped helping to pay our joint housing expenses and bills. Last month, he only paid his credit cards and a bill for our flatbed trailer, which I helped to pay for almost 2 years when money's paid it from our joint account. When I went to move money from our joint business account to our joint personal account to cover our mortgage, he sent me a message saying he will never have a joint account with me again. I don't know how to handle this. I do not make enough to cover our housing, bills, food, and my credit card. My car is needing work done. He expects to be paid just like I would to another mechanic. Could someone please give me some advice? He won't leave as his name is on the deed too. I feel as if he is just waiting for me to implode or come begging to him for help. Then he can state his demands.
Okay, so let's do what we're going to do in the workshop. What is his problem? That's the first thing that we're going to think about. So from what you've said, his problem is he's selfish, he's stingy, he's withholding, he's angry, he doesn't want to play fair, he doesn't want to be a co-contributor to your marriage. That's what I'm getting from that, right? What's your problem? What's your problem with his problem? Well, it leaves you without a partner, right? You're scared. You're financially at risk. You have a broken car, right? So what are you going to do about your problem? That's the question that we need to talk about, because you're not going to change him. He's trying to manage you or control you or punish you or whatever he's doing by this shenanigans. I don't have enough history to know, and maybe you'll never know, right? But you have some very real problems. You live with a man you can't trust. You share money with a man who isn't fair. And apparently you have a business together because you took money out of the business account. So I'm not sure whether you're working in the business or you just have access to the business account. But what might you do to solve your problem? What might be the first step? And I can't tell you for sure. I'm going to give you some possibilities because I don't know enough details to be wise enough to tell you. But if I were in your shoes right now and I were hearing what that was happening to me, the very first thing I would do would I be making a consultation with a lawyer. That's the very first thing I would do, because I need information. I need information on what's legally mine, what's legally am I entitled to. How do I manage someone who's got joint money with me? Can I take mine out? How do I handle that legally so I don't get in trouble and I can protect whatever assets I have? That would be my first, so that I'm not feeling so nervous about the money, because he's playing a hardball game with you about money. And if you don't do anything to educate yourself, you're going to end up on the losing end of that. So that would be the first step I would take to solve my problem. Lack of knowledge about what legally I'm entitled to do to protect myself financially, right? That would be my first step. My second step would be then to have a conversation with him, if it's safe and if I have access to be able to take care of the bills, is to say, it sounds like you're really not interested in being a partner together in our marriage anymore. That's what you're showing and telling me by the way you're behaving. Is that true? And maybe he doesn't want to. And maybe he's not capable or willing to be honest enough with himself or with you by telling you that. But I would call it out. I would call out, like if my body was breaking down, I would say something like, oh, my body is telling me something's wrong. Right? And I hope I would go to the doctor to find out what it is. I wouldn't just ignore it. So this interaction is telling you something's dreadfully wrong in your relationship. And if you can stay calm enough to say, let's just call it, if the relationship is dead, it's truth is hard, but you can only function in a healthy way if you know what the truth is. Right? So what is the truth in terms of your legal protection and your legal responsibilities? What is the truth about the status of your marriage? So that would be the second question I would begin to pursue. And then if he's letting you know that he's moved on or he's not interested or he's mad at you and he's punishing you, then you have to decide what other steps you need to do to solve your problem. What other assets do you hold in place together? How are you going to, maybe you're working for him and maybe that's not smart to do anymore, right? Because he's got control over your paycheck. And maybe you need to take your skill set and go find another job somewhere else in which you might be able to be more appreciated and earn enough money that you can keep a separate account and pay your own bills. And at some point may have to do something more legally. But that would be the way I would start solving your problem. Because if you spend all your energy right now trying to convince him or beg him or placate him or whatever, he may calm down for a minute, but whatever he did worked to keep you under control and keep you afraid. And if you want to live that way the rest of your life, that certainly is your choice, but that wouldn't be my choice. Any other thoughts, Leanne?
No, that was so complete and so brilliant. And I'm so glad that this is recorded. Sisters, Leslie, thank you for that generous share and real tangible things that she can do in the moment, because there are a lot of overlaps. I'll just say there's so many things woven together in her question.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many overlaps of finances, and knowing what you are legally responsible for and to and with, that's going to be very empowering for you, because you had said that, he won't, I'm waiting. He's just waiting for me to implode. And I would just add, sweet sister, what will you do to give yourself compassion so you won't implode? Imploding will not help you figure out what your next best steps are. You only have 100% energy every single day. You get to choose how to use that. Maybe imploding, if that's how you want to use your energy, then use your energy that way. I used to be an imploder. I called it going nuclear. And there was one time where I did that, Leslie. I was not compassionate on myself. I was not compassionate with the person sitting next to me. And I couldn't even think clearly because of the destructive behavior that was going in both arenas. And somebody had to say time out and stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of imploding, what would you like to do instead? And I hope, my prayer is that use that energy to take really powerful steps to get the information that you need so that you can make the best decision that you can, so you are not depleted any longer.
Yeah, and oftentimes, so I've worked with this field enough in destructive relationship dynamics to know that more of a covert abuser can do things to try to get you to implode. Mm-hmm. Because when you implode, it's usually pretty obvious that to others, especially your children, adult children, little children, neighbors, that you look like the mentally ill one.
That's right.
You look like the crazy one. And so then when you try to start telling your side of the story, people are like, ooh, I saw what she did. I saw what she said. She looks like a wreck. She can't handle her emotion. And so you just don't want to let yourself get to that place, right. But be compassionate. One more thing I want to say to you all. We all have limited capacity. We all have limited capacity. So I'm going to use kind of a gross analogy, but I think it'll make the point. So I don't know how long you can hold your urine once you know you have to tinkle to the time that you are going to tinkle your pants. But you all know how long that is. As we're getting older, the time span is getting a little shorter. But there is a place where, so we learned as little kids that we didn't just tinkle every time we felt like it. We learned to pay attention to our body and to notice that, I might have to tinkle in a little while. Maybe it'll take me, I could tinkle now, but I could wait for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe an hour if I had to. And then we don't drink more if that's the case. If we don't have the opportunity to tinkle for another hour, we don't keep drinking gallons of water because we know that our capacity is limited, right? And we don't want to embarrass ourselves by peeing in public on ourselves because we didn't get to the toilet. I'm going to use that same analogy for your emotions.
Amen.
We have limited capacity to contain our implosions, right? If we don't have enough sleep, if we're being constantly provoked and we don't have boundaries, if we're hungry and tired, hormonally challenged, we are going to limit our capacity even more, right? But you can't contain that forever and ever and ever while you're being provoked. There's a limit to your capacity to contain that. So why would you put yourself in a situation where you're allowing someone to endlessly provoke you to get to the end of your capacities? And then you're going to explode all over yourself. Just like, why would you let your husband say, no, you can't go to the bathroom now. No, you can't go to the bathroom now. No, I still want to talk to you. And finally, you're going to say, I've got to go to the bathroom. And you would get up and go to the bathroom, right? You would have a boundary. I need to take care of me. I'm not listening to you anymore. In the same way, emotionally, when you feel like you're ready to implode, you need to take care of you compassionately. No one says, what's wrong with you that you have to go to the bathroom now? Nobody does that. We just say, time to take care of me. I got to go to the bathroom. It's okay. I'm going to take care of you. In the same way, when you're emotionally exhausted or at your limit, it's okay for you to say, I can't listen anymore to you. I got to take care of me. And you don't have to say that with your mouth, but you have to say that to yourself and go take care of you.
So good. So good. So powerful. There's been a lot of encouragement in the chat. We can only function in a healthy way if you know what the truth is. And that's so important. Just like identifying what their problem is and what your problem is, commit to the truth. Don't spin and wonder. Give yourself a pause for a minute. And just like Leslie did, walk through what really is going on here. What is their problem and what is my problem with what's going on with them? It brings a lot of clarity. And I think that's another thing, Leslie, that I'd like to just bring up before we go to the next questions is that clarity is kind. Self-compassion, one of the most self-compassionate things that you can do for yourself is to give yourself some breath and gather the information that you need in order to make real wise and conscious decisions. Because sometimes we can beat up on ourselves because we are confused and because there is a lot of chaos. And so if we can gain some clarity, we can clean, like if I'm wearing glasses right now, right? And so if I were to take Vaseline and put them all over the lenses of my glasses, I couldn't see you. I couldn't see the link to join the workshop. I couldn't read the feed. I would have to stop and I would have to clean that Vaseline off my lens before I could move forward. And sometimes in our brains and our bodies and our hearts, when things are chaotic, we just need to clean it up a little bit. And part of that is that self-compassion to gain some clarity.
Yeah. And here it goes back to the permission to not know. Like, I don't know. I don't know. So that's a good self-compassionate first step. Who might know? Maybe a lawyer would know. Maybe I need to consult with an accountant if I have tax issues. You don't have to know everything yourself.
That's
but
right.
You certainly don't want to make huge decisions based on ignorance, right? And so to calm yourself down and say, what do I need to know in order to solve my problem? So if I'm lost, then where do I need to, what's the first thing I need to know to solve my problem? I need to know where I am. right? Like, even if I call someone on my cell phone, I say, I'm awesome. And they go, where are you? I'll come pick you up. I'm like, I don't know. Well, they can't help me if I don't know where I am. And so this is why it's so important to self-steward yourself, like we talked about yesterday. Where are you? So that you can make the next right choice. I'm here. I want to go there. But if I don't even know where I am or where I need to go, then I might need some extra help, like a GPS or a map or street signs to help me orient. Where am I? I'm on the corner of this corner, or I'm by a big building that says this label, whatever it might be. And so give yourself some space and time to say, where am I financially? Where am I legally? Where am I relationally? And what steps do I need to take to be a good steward of me? Because he's not functioning in my best interest. He's not functioning in our best interest. He's only functioning in his best interest in a self-centered, sinful way. And so I have to think about my interests right now, or my children's best interest, and what do I need to do to be safe financially from his irresponsibility, his recklessness, his selfishness, his maliciousness. Any of the above or all of the above are things that could have come up in that question.
Indeed. So powerful.
Okay, I'll read the next one.
All right.
I've been divorced for 6 months. I've been in a safe place for 6 months. I'm going back home in a week, starting a new job, a new life. However, my adult son, who's 23, lost his job and wants to stay with me now. I don't have the emotional capacity for this, and he has been as abusive to me as his dad during the divorce process. How do I lovingly set boundaries with him without feeling guilty? Your book originally opened up to me that my marriage was destructive with a narcissist. It took me 8 years to leave and divorce, and I don't feel I owe my child my freedom. Appreciate your help.
How do you lovingly set boundaries without feeling guilty? I so appreciate that. I'm a mama too, and I hear your mama's heart come. I also hear your desire for your freedom and to embrace and start a life anew. And so one thing that I would say is, have you given yourself a moment to map out what new could look like for you? Do you know some of the things that you want and need in order to restart, to push that button? If not, give yourself the gift of time to really kind of frame up what your new life could look like for you, your ideal situation. Like, I often tell my clients, I say, what is happening a year from now that you want to be celebrating? And so when you think of your relationship with your son, what do you want to say about your relationship with your son a year from now? What do you want to say about your freedom and beginning your life again a year from now? And then back it down a little bit. Back it down a little bit and say, okay, so what is one step I can do in order to walk that path forward? That's that clarity piece that I was talking about a moment ago. And then that's going to help you understand what you will do and what you won't do when it comes to supporting your son and supporting your well-being moving forward. So that's one strategy and one route that you can take. And Leslie, I'm going to hand it back over to you. What else would you add?
So I think you can think about it a couple ways. Leanne gave you one way to think about it, but you've asked specifically what's a boundary to not feel guilty. And so I think that's where you have to really do some internal work, because you have an external problem. How do I not live with my son? I don't want to live with my son. You've already made that really clear, even though you don't, know exactly how to tell him yet. But why do you feel guilty about that? That's the question. What's the should behind the guilt? Because I think if you can let go of that, you can figure out what the boundary is, right? But somehow there's I should always be willing to take my son in if he needs a house. I should be generous and give him what he needs. I should help him out to solve his problem. What's the should that you're struggling with if I say no? If I say, no, you can't live with me, or no, that's not going to work for me, or no, I need some space to just be on my own for a little bit. I don't want to have company living with me or anybody living with me. What's the should that you're going to have to really work through in order to be able to do what you want to do, which is say no to him without feeling guilt, like I'm a bad mom because I didn't say yes. I'm a selfish person because I didn't say yes. So I think that's the crux of what you need to think about and work through, because I think what I'm getting out of this is what you want, like Leanne said, is to be celebrating your newfound life and your ability to find yourself as a single woman and working and all of that, and repairing maybe your relationship with your son or your children, however that is going to happen as an adult. But you don't want the burden of the re-traumatization of the adult child being emotionally abusive to you like he has in the past, and you're not prepared to deal with that or want to even deal with that right now. You've got other things on your burners that you want to deal with, which is your new job and your new life, which could be stressful enough without adding that old familiar dimension to it. So I think that the first step is to really do some inner work. What is the bad mom message that you're giving yourself if you say no, that's hooking you into feeling guilty? All right. So what's his problem? He doesn't have a place to live. That's his problem to solve. He's trying to solve that in the easiest way possible. Mom, can I live with you? Might he have more growth to do if he figured out that problem for himself? Like, what if you weren't moving back there? How would he solve his problem? I lost my job. I don't have a place to live. If you weren't the fallback person for him, how might he grow as a man instead of depending on his mom to rescue him to solve his problem, which is sort of what he's doing, and you're tempted to let him with resentment? What might be possible if he just solved his own problem and figured it out? He might actually feel a whole lot better about himself as a man than he does by just depending on you. So it might be the kindest, best thing for him for you to say no, right? Not because you don't want him around, but because he's a man now. And this is his problem to solve, not yours, right? And so that may be the kindest thing you do, but you're having this, like a mom should always be willing to sacrifice to help their child. And again, if he told you he had chemo and leukemia and he couldn't work and he needed a place to stay while he was staying, maybe you would do it, right? But that's not the story. My guess is he lost a job because maybe he wasn't being responsible, and maybe for him to move in is just feeding that problem, right?
That's right.
And so the Bible tells us not to enable irresponsibility. Proverbs 6 says that if someone wants you to co-sign on a loan, don't do it. Why not? Because it just enables someone who's not handling their money well just to continue not handling their money well, and you're taking responsibility for that. So I think using this framework, what's his problem? He needs a place to live. Is it your job to solve a 23-year-old adult person's problem? No. Why would you feel guilty? That's his problem to solve. And when you solve your own problems, especially young men, that empowers you to feel more like a man versus a kid. That mommy's solving my problem.
True.
So I would say that would be the place I would go to begin to work on not feeling guilty about that.
I love that, Leslie. And I just want to acknowledge the fact that she said, I don't have the emotional capacity. Thank you that you are admitting your limits and that you know what your capacity is. Congratulations. That says a lot about the work that you've done up until now.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, maybe one way that you can be generous, if you want to be generous, to say, you know what? I appreciate that you want to live with me and that your relationship with me, that you feel safe enough to ask. And that warms my heart. I just don't have the capacity right now. I'm still recovering from the divorce and I'm going to be starting a new job. And I just don't have the capacity to live with anybody right now. What I can do is I can give you $500 for a security deposit on an apartment. Or what I can do is give you $100 towards a room and board for a while until you get another job. That's what I can do. So this is what I can't do. And this is what I can do without any resentment. I can do this without feeling
So
one bit
good.
of resentment. I can't and you wouldn't say this to him. I can't have you live with me without resentment, but I can do this, right? And then do it.
And then do it.
All right. How do I navigate my guilt that my soon to be ex is lonely and sad and that the kids and I don't want to be with him? It's because his actions and behaviors, but he can't see it. So these are great questions that help us. His problem, your problem. You're trying to solve his problem.
Yeah. And I just want to give a shout out for the workshop coming up. If you haven't already, go to that link below. And what's coming up for me, Leslie, is there's so many women who are navigating these challenges about needing them to be okay in order for me to be okay, and knowing his problem, my problem, your problem, whose is it? I was having this idea about have a watch party, grab some girlfriends and have a watch party, watch it together. Give yourself that gift of 2 or 3 hours. Make a dinner, have a soup and salad and talk about this.
Yeah.
Because these are real life issues. All the questions that are coming into our space, they're so real. And so many of us are challenged with very difficult relationships. And so being together in community is a beautiful way to help give each other permission to share what's going on, as well as to resource some loving energy from others who get it.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a great idea, Leanne, to have a watch party with some other women, because if you can start developing this mindset of what's his problem or what's their
Yes.
problem, is it my responsibility to fix their problem, or am I just enabling their immaturity? Am I just enabling their dysfunction and I'm being the hero of their story? I'm not even letting them develop their sea legs to fix their own problem, to figure out their own problem. And there's a lot of self-esteem that comes when we stop depending on everybody else to fix our lives and we fix it ourselves. And it feels like, wow. I mean, how many of you have ever not had someone help you fix a leaky toilet or not fix something, and you went on YouTube, you figured it out and you did it and you thought, oh, I can do it. I can solve this problem myself. And it feels really good. We don't have to rush in and be the hero of solving someone else's problem. So how do I navigate my guilt that I'm not solving my husband's loneliness problem? He's lonely and sad that we don't want to be with him. What's your response to her, Leanne?
Well, what might be different if you let him just sit in his loneliness for a little bit, and you don't have to fix his feelings or make it better for him? Oftentimes we can try to rush in and fix things, and then people, especially those who have a very difficult time feeling their emotions, and they stuff them, they numb them, they buffer them. For them to sit in the gift of that emotion oftentimes could be that transformative moment that I talked about earlier on in this live today. That might be a moment for them to actually feel and not have somebody rescue them from that maybe uncomfortable feeling. Because sometimes the most amazing transformation can happen in that discomfort, when we really have to wrestle with ourselves and look inside. And they may even find out what their problem is if they feel their emotions, as opposed to having somebody try to pull them out of them.
Yeah. Cindy says, yes, being an adult means we work on our own problems and we figure it out. And Christian says, these are the consequences of his choices. And I think, just like this woman whose son lost his job, I think for her to come in and rescue him from that lesson learned is going to short circuit his growth.
That's right.
Because he has to learn, boy, was I stupid. I acted out, or I didn't show up for work, and I don't get away with getting a paycheck if I'm not responsible and showing up for work, or for whatever reason he lost his job. And if I don't get a paycheck, I can't pay my rent. Ooh, I better start being more mature. Oops, I better start being more responsible if I want to have a place to live and I want to have a paycheck, right? That's a good lesson. And this man who's sitting alone and lonely, and if you can compassionately, if he says, I'm so lonely, I miss my family, and to say, I am so sad for you. But the reason we don't want to come home or be with you is we don't like the way you treat us. I mean, I don't know if you've ever eaten too much or if you've ever drank too much and you had a horrible hangover and you said to yourself, I'm never doing that again. Sometimes the consequences are really painful, but they're good lessons to say, I don't want to act that way anymore. It costs me. Right. And if you come in and feel guilty because he's experiencing that, you're short circuiting the lessons that God uses in our pain. Our pain is meant to wake us up and teach us not continue to do that stupid stuff anymore. But if we're short circuiting that pain, if I can overeat and I don't have to gain a pound the next day and I don't get artery clogs, guess what? I'm not going to worry about that then. Right. But if I overeat and I have a stomach ache or I get on the scale the next day and I've gained 2 pounds, I'm like, oh, that wasn't worth it. Those are the consequences that teach us that we pay sometimes dearly for acting stupid. And that's not your job to rescue him from that. It's your job to be compassionate that he's paying those consequences, but not to end the consequences. And that's hard, even with kids. If they get an F, like I remember my son was in high school and he was not doing well in school. And I said, look, if you don't get some help for advanced chemistry, which I couldn't help him with at all, but if you don't get some help, you're going to fail that class. And if you fail that class, I'm not paying for your tuition, because he was going to a private school. I said, so you'll have to go to the public school. Well, he, of course, didn't listen to me. And then he failed. And I said, I guess you have to go. And he had never been to the public school. So his junior year of high school, he had to go to a completely different school. And I said, I guess you're going to have to go to the public school because I'm not paying tuition if you don't get help for your classes that you don't do well in. And I said, but if you get really good grades, I'll send you back to your private school for your senior year. And he did. But you know what? I never had an issue with him in college at all, because he knew that if he didn't study and get his grades, I wasn't going to pay his tuition. And so I think this is really important for our kids, for us not to rescue them out of the consequences of their poor choices. And your husband's made poor choices. I'm sure you've given him plenty of warning. So why are you feeling guilty? Right? That's the issue. Your problem is I feel guilt because you're believing a lie. And this is a lie. A good wife would solve her husband's problem, wouldn't stand by and allow him to feel his pain. How come God lets us feel our pain? God is a good, good father. God is the best husband. And yet he lets us feel our pain because there are lessons in our pain that are meant to mature us. And when we short circuit those lessons by trying to be the fixer and the hero of someone else's story, we overfunction and we short circuit the lesson that they're supposed to learn.
Well, Leslie, I love that you brought that up. And what's coming up for me too is, it's hard to see it through, to let the consequences play out, to let the loneliness play out. And I've worked with so many women, and I've had this in my own life as well, is I get stuck in the middle. Mm-hmm. I call it the messy middle.
Yeah.
And I won't take it through to the other side and let God have his way. Because I think I've got to get in there and manipulate it or fix it, or all of a sudden I get scared or whatever. And it's like, wait, just 1 minute. Let's not get stuck in the messy middle. Let's see this play out and let's trust God. Place the outcome in his hands and see what he will do if I just duck and get out of the way here for a minute.
And one of the things we have a lot of adult children who are having problems. One of the things I've told my adult children that has been very empowering for me and for them, I have confidence that you can figure it out.
That's right.
Right. So I'm not criticizing them like, oh, what did you do wrong? Even the woman I can't have you live with me, not because you're a bad son and I don't want you, but because I need my space. I just need some space to heal. And I'm not at capacity to have anybody live with me right now. So no, you can't live with me. This is what I can do. But son, you're bright, you're smart. I'm sure you can figure it out. That's one of the most empowering statements a parent can give to a child who's growing up, right? Because it's like, okay, I've got to get my big boy pants on or my big girl pants on. I'm an adult. I need to figure it out. I can figure it out. Might not be as easy as just going home to mom, but actually doing the harder path might make him feel more like a man than a child who failed, which is empowering to him. Because even though he might appreciate you living with him, he will resent you because he's not functioning as a man. And you will resent him because he's living with you. So it's a lose-lose situation. So just remember, empower your children that they can do what they want. As far as your husband, once you get this model, and I really want you to come to the workshop so you can get more of the robustness of it, because we do a lot of fear-based love. Once you understand this, you can love your husband, the one who just answered this question. You can love him and say, I feel bad for you. You are lonely. You are lonely. I feel terrible that you feel so lonely. What do you need to do differently so that doesn't happen? Is really the question he needs to wrestle with. And maybe he will begin to realize, hey, when I don't bite people's head off and bite them in the butt every time they ask for something, maybe people will want to be with me. Like if I have a dog that bites me, I'm going to get rid of it. Right? I'm just not going to live with something like that. And so he's not connecting the dots. And compassionately, if you have a conversation with them, you might say, hey, are you interested in my opinion on this? And maybe he is, and maybe he isn't. But that's, these are the results of the kind of household we had. Nobody wants to hang out with you. You're mean. Right? Yeah. And let him.
And I love that question. Yeah, I love that question. What could you do differently to try and shift the situation in the relationship? I believe you have it within you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super good.
All right. I feel disrespected, disregarded, then discarded. My husband will not work on our marriage. My husband would not work on our marriage, would not move forward with separation either, so I had to. It's been a year, so it's time I can file for divorce. He would be okay just staying separated. So again, I will be the one to move forward. If he leaves it to me, then he can say I broke up the marriage so that he doesn't feel guilty for not working on the marriage or need to take responsibility. But I feel guilty ending the marriage, even though I follow God's will. I hate for my kids, 15 and 17, but I want them to know that an unhealthy marriage is not okay. How do I overcome this guilt? Any thoughts, Leanne?
Big one. Mm-hmm. Well, it's heavy. Yeah. One thing, come to the workshop. You're going to get a lot of tools. So go to, for those of you who are just listening, and I say this in complete honesty, your workshops have changed my life and impacted my relationships. And so save your seat, leslievernick.com/join webinar. Please reserve your seat. We work with women all day long who are navigating very similar circumstances that you just expressed. And I'm sorry that you are feeling disrespected. I just want to acknowledge that for a minute because it's painful. The disrespected, disregarded, and discarded is heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking as well that he would not want to work on your relationship. And he wants you to look like the bad girl, the mean wife, the icky mommy who's going to break apart a family. And I'm sorry for that for you. I hope that you have some support around you. You're here and we're glad you're part of our community. You're asking that you're feeling guilty about ending the marriage. Even though you followed God's will, I want to encourage you, write down what you know God is telling you about you and about your relationship, about how much God loves you and how much he sees you. Take ownership of everything that you know in your heart of hearts that God says about you. And sometimes when I'm feeling guilty, I just really invite in the Holy Spirit to remove false guilt. I think we can forget the power of the Holy Spirit and that he's waiting for us to give us that clarity of mind and heart, body and spirit. And so I just want to maybe for just even a moment, if we could just take a breath together. Leslie, is this okay? I'm feeling led. Maybe I need to be doing this for me as well. But I think touching and tapping into the power of the Holy Spirit when guilt overwhelms us is one of the very first things that we can do. And so we can take a breath together. Maybe it's even putting your arms up and giving a stretch, opening up your heart. And again, hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and saying, Lord, if I have false guilt inside of me, show me. God's word says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious ways. See if there is anything in me that is not in line with you, and lead me in the way to truth everlasting. And so I use that verse for a lot of things. I'm giving you kind of a Leanne tool here, but it's remove the false guilt. Because if that guilt is not from God that way,
Right.
it's going to be man imposed. And so one thing that we can do is remove something that is not ours to carry.
Yeah.
And
Satan
so
is the accuser. There's a lot of false guilt in our lives. And so be careful, because Satan can accuse you of things that aren't true. And whatsoever things are true, good, right, lovely, let your mind dwell on these things. So Leanne's right. Really ask yourself, is it true that I did something wrong? Right? Because that's what we feel guilty about. But the other analogy I'd like to give you is this. So I like word pictures because it's easier to remember than all of this teaching. So like having to go potty was one word picture. This is another word picture. This is when I heard that question, this is what I was thinking. So I'm thinking you are frantically doing CPR on your marriage. Boom, 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 boom. And you're like, come on, come back to life. Come on, come back to life. Come on, come back to life. And the marriage has not come back to life because your husband didn't want to energize his heart, right? His heart is dead. And so you're like, I got to call it. It is what it is. It's a dead marriage. Did you kill the marriage? No. You just faced reality. The marriage is dead. That's hard enough. But why are you guilty? You did all you could to bring this marriage back to life. And it's dead. And so to me, the divorce certificate isn't breaking up the home. The divorce certificate is like the death certificate. The marriage has been broken. The marriage is dead, and I've done all I can to revive it. I know that before the Lord. Okay, it's dead. Why would you feel guilty for that? Right? You have not broken the marriage. The marriage was broken. The marriage was dying, and you have tried your best, from what you've said, to implement CPR. But even doctors can't bring the dead back to life. They have to call it.
Amen.
So that's, why would you feel guilty? Why would you feel guilty? It's because you're framing it in an inaccurate way, I think, in your head. Like somehow it's your fault. You're breaking up the home. The home was broken. The marriage was dead. You're just giving it the death certificate. And that's sad. That's sad. And you should grieve, but it's not guilt. It's grief. And I hope that's good.
Yeah, so good. Do we have time for some more questions?
I have a little bit. I have about 15 more minutes, so we can do some more of these. We have about 3 more questions, so I think we can do it. 15 minutes. Do you have time?
I do. I'll read the next one for you.
Okay.
All right. What do you say when you say that you need to take time to take care of yourself and he lashes out, yelling that you are just avoiding the conversation or being accused of making the rules with bunny ears?
Okay, so his problem is he wants to control you and decide for you how long you need to be in a conversation with him in order for him to be okay with that. And you're not cooperating with his desire to control you. You're saying, no, I get to control me and how long I want to be in this conversation. And he doesn't like that. So he is attacking you and he is accusing you. And so there's 2 things that you need to do One is you need to accept what you cannot change. So we talked about what's his problem. His problem is he wants to manage you and control you. Your problem is this isn't a problem. You're not letting him. And so your problem is he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. So he's trying to get you to back down from your taking care of you to manage you. And you're struggling with, how do I get him to understand I need to take care of me? And so your problem is you keep wanting him to agree with you. You keep wanting him to accept your decision, like, I can't talk anymore. Instead, he's demonizing that, and he's making you the bad guy because you need self-care, or you need to end the conversation, or you need to take care of you. It's just like, you wouldn't do that if you had to pee and you said, I can't talk anymore, I've got to go to the bathroom, or I got to go throw up, or I've got to go, take care of me. You wouldn't let yourself be persuaded that that was bad, that you were bad. You would just see, he's crazy. He's not letting me go to the bathroom. He's crazy. You would just understand that it's unreasonable for him to do that. But with this, just taking care of me emotionally, somehow that's not good enough for you. And it's not good enough for him, for sure, but it's not good enough for you. And so I think here's where you're going to have to do your own work to say, what if I never convince him that my needing to take care of me is important? What if I never convince him that I'm not trying to control him, I'm just trying to control me from blowing up or imploding on him or saying the wrong thing, and so I need to take care of me to calm down? What if I never convince him? Well, can I still be okay? Or do I need him to agree with me that my self-care is good and right now? Do I need him to agree with me in order for me to be okay? We're going to unpack all that in the workshop, so you definitely want to go. But this is where it gets tricky, because it's not like you're trying to get him to do something other than you want him to validate. Oh, okay, you need a break? No problem. But he's not doing that. And so the question becomes, do you need him to be okay with you in order for you to be okay? See, this goes back into the people pleasing. Like, oh, yes. If I say no to somebody, they're going to be disappointed. Yeah, they probably will. Do you need them to be okay with you in order for you to be okay? If they're not okay, I'll people please you then in order for me to be okay. I'll placate you. And so that's the work. When we talk about doing our own work, that's our work to do, to disentangle from that manipulative, I'm going to control you by my disapproval. So he's disapproving of your desire for self-care and boundaries, and he's mocking you, or he's calling you names, or he's twisting it into you're controlling me when you're not controlling him. You're not telling him what he can do and what he can't do. You're just trying to control you. But he doesn't like it because now he can't control you if you control you. And so that's understandable for someone who's controlling. But you have to understand, you're not going to change his mind because it works for him. So you have to be okay with him not being okay with you.
That's right.
And that's hard when you're married to somebody.
That's hard.
Especially if you need their approval in order for you to be okay. So part of you is to do some work like, okay, it's hard. It's sad that he's mad at me. It's hard. It's uncomfortable that he's disappointed in me. And I'm going to have to learn to be okay with that because I'm not going to change my mind. And the more you do that, then he will either grow to accept your decisions, or he will escalate and make it more clear for you what your next steps are.
So good. So good.
All right. I'll read the next one, Leanne. Have any of your clients' husbands ever admitted that they were a narcissist or an abuser? And what does a woman who has made peace with leaving say to her husband about her reason for leaving when her husband will not admit to being an abuser? Do you just leave saying nothing, or be honest and tell them the reason, knowing he will not agree or admit to it?
So I will say it's very hard for a man to admit that he is a narcissist or an abuser. Those words,
or for a woman, it would be hard.
Yeah, for anyone. This gal said clients' husbands, so that's why I said husbands.
I'm just saying, right? I'm generalizing it. Any narcissist would have a hard time, whether they're male or female, admitting that they're a narcissist.
Yeah, totally. Those words do not roll easily off the tongue or out of the heart. And so I will say I do know some men who have turned it around. Not very many. If and, and we have to be careful, do they have a narcissistic diagnosis? And we're not here to diagnose anybody, but it is very hard for a man or a woman to admit that they are a narcissist or an abuser. It takes a lot of courage to do that and a lot of humility. And it requires a lot of inner work and self-ownership for them to do that. So that's the first part of the question. Have any of them ever done it? Yes, not a whole bunch. What does a woman who has made peace with leaving say to her husband about her reason for leaving when he won't admit it? And so this is one of those areas where you have an opportunity to be very, very clear about what's okay with you and what's not okay with you, and talk about the behaviors and not the label. Talk about the behaviors that they are doing and not the label.
So give some
That
examples.
is one way.
Give some examples.
Leslie, I'm sorry, you broke up. I did not hear you, hon.
Give some examples of what she might say.
Oh, there. Now I did hear that. There we go. What she could say is, even going back to one of our previous questions, I feel dismissed when you second guess or doubt my decision making. So you're talking about the behavior they did. They're dismissing. So they're talking about behavior, not that you emotionally abused me when you said. You could talk about when you twist my words, I get confused. So you're talking about their behavior. When you get angry and slam doors, it scares me. When you raise your hand at our children, I fear for their safety and well-being. Those are a couple of examples. You're talking about the behavior there. When you lie to me, I feel betrayed. I'm experienced betrayal.
Yeah, and those are great. Even if you just have to get that clear in your own head, those are great ways to speak, especially if you're trying to get them to understand instead of calling them a name, which they're going to get defensive about. Just call out their, when you curse at me, I don't like it. I don't like it. When you lie to me, it makes me feel like I can't trust you. All right. So you're giving them specific, when you call me these names, and I would actually say them out loud, it makes me feel like you could care less about me or our marriage. Right. And I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be treated that way. I don't want to do life with someone who devalues me all the time. So you're not saying anything about him other than this is what you do that I don't like, and I don't want to live with that anymore. I don't want to try to make love with a man who's got pornographic images in his head and wants me to do what he saw on the screen. That doesn't work for me anymore. I don't want to do that. So then he gets a chance to decide whether that matters to him, whether he wants to believe you, whether he wants to change, whether he does or he doesn't. But you're just saying, this is what I will tolerate. This is what I won't tolerate. This is what I will live with. This is what I won't live with. And this is your work to do as an adult for pretty much everything. But to understand that when you're in a relationship with someone, there's a lot that we're to forbear. The Bible tells us, accept one another, live with one another's faults in an understanding way, all of those kind of things. So we can't do this without, big deal breakers. These are deal breaker stuff. This isn't just, hey, I won't live with you if you don't put the toilet paper on the toilet roll the way I want you to. I won't live with you if you don't screw the cap on the toothpaste the way I want you to. If you don't put the milk in the fridge every time, I'm not going to live with you. We're not talking about those kind of things. We're talking about deal breaker things that break trust and break safety in a relationship.
That's right.
And so when those things are broken in a relationship, you can't live in harmony. And God calls us to live at peace, be at peace. That's one of the biggest things that God talks about in our relationships is have peace with one another, live in peace, and you can't do that just by faking the peace, right? Just by being silent and putting up with the abuser. That's not peace. That's compliance.
That's right.
being afraid to speak up. That's not true peace. And so when peace and safety are broken again and again and again, this is your place to say, what's my problem with this? I don't feel safe and I don't feel peaceful with you. I need to speak up and have some boundaries. I won't continue to put myself and the kids in a situation where we are unsafe and continually feel emotionally riled up inside. Right?
So
So that's
good.
what he's talking
It's
about.
powerful.
It's not labeling them as a narcissist, it's labeling
That's
them
right.
and defining their behavior that's breaking the trust and breaking the peace. So their problem is whatever they watch porn, they lie, they scream, they abuse, they're selfish. That's their problem. You're not going to solve their problem. My problem is I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I can trust this person. I can't do life with this person. I don't even want to sleep in the same bed. I don't want to kiss them. I feel afraid of them. What are you going to do about your problem? Right? And that's what we're going to teach you how to do in the workshop.
It's going to be so good. Can hardly wait for August 17th, my friends, Thursday. Leslie offers the workshop at 2 different times on Thursday. So one in the afternoon and one in the evening. Choose the best spot for you and reserve your seat.
Okay. We have one more question I'm going to answer, or Leanne's going to answer. We maybe both chime in on it. But before we do, I wonder if you would be willing to just take a moment and put in the chat, what has been your biggest learning today? What have you taken away? Like, oh gosh, this is helpful. I can use this. This is important for us as we structure Facebook Live. We really want you not just to listen, because listening goes in one ear and out the other. We don't want you just to teach you stuff. We want you to actually learn. We want it to make a difference in your life. And so take a moment and ask yourself, what did I learn? What's my takeaway from today? We've talked about compassion. We've talked about owning your problem. We've talked about not taking responsibility for someone else's problem, not to feel guilty for what I can't change. Yeah, you're not that powerful. Knowing we have a right. Yeah, you do have a right. What else has been some of your biggest takeaways? I'd love to hear that. And then we'll answer one more question. Talk about the behavior, not the labels.
Amen.
Especially if you're going to go to a counselor or you're going to go to your pastor about this, do it with the behavior, because pastors don't understand narcissism the way you do, or they don't understand when you talk about he's emotionally abusive. They're thinking, like, what? Is he just, sarcastic, or you don't? So use the behaviors to describe things. The marriage was already broken.
I love this one, Leslie. He can throw the blame, but we don't have to catch it.
Yeah. Never trust anyone who lies to you.
When I feel guilty about someone not being okay with me, I might actually be grieving about the loss in the relationship. So golden. So golden.
Mm-hmm. I've worked so hard to make a destructive marriage work that I love standing up and saying, I can do this and I can't do that. Yeah, I will do this. I won't do that.
It's important to have compassion for my inner self and ways in which to do it. Amen.
Yes.
So good.
A divorce certificate is acknowledging the reality of a marriage condition, just as a death certificate is of a person who died. Stop doing CPR and call the time of death. Yeah.
I cannot bring a dead marriage back to life, no matter how hard I try. It's dead. It's dead. Powerful. Mom guilt, not enabling your adult children. It is not in their best interest.
Yeah. Take the time to pause
and
recognize what type of guilt we're holding on to. Is it true or false?
Boundaries are okay to take care of myself.
Yeah. CPR, good analogy. Yeah. And there's a place to do some CPR if you can, right? So his problem is he's having a heart attack. What can I do to help him? But if it doesn't work, what's my problem? I'm getting exhausted. I'm running out of gas. I'm going to have a heart attack pretty soon, right? I can't bring someone back to life if their heart doesn't kick in and start working on its own. I can wear myself out trying to bring them back to life. And is God really asking you to do that?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, one more question. And this is a mom question. I am realizing lately that my mom still treats me like I am a child. I'm 32. For example, she's telling me what to do instead of providing advice like a sister in Christ. I want to confront her without sounding harsh. She has done this for so long. I don't think she sees anything wrong with it. So, how about we not talk about what she's doing wrong? Because most people get defensive. And since you've never talked to her about that before, how about we talk about what you might need her to do differently? Leanne, why don't you pick a couple phrases of what she might need her to do differently?
Oh my goodness. Well, I just love that reframe, Leslie. And so it can sound as simple as, wow, Mom, I love that you have great ideas in this. You know what? I've got some ideas too. Would you like to hear mine? Or invite her along with you doing a very empowering act, or, something that really juices you, and let her see you shine. You have been given beautiful gifts by God and by her. And so let her see you and say, you know what, Mom, I'd really like for you to celebrate this with me. Are you willing? Are you willing? There's some creative, there's one word or one letter between the word reactive and creative, and that's the letter C. And I dive a lot into that after this workshop coming up. And so just remembering sometimes, I'm a mom too, and I'm a Grammy, and we love to see our kids get excited. And sometimes we think we have the best ideas. We don't. We have raised you and empowered you to be brilliant. And so let your brilliance shine. I think that's one thing that we can do is we can hide it because we're afraid. And so I would say, hey, let her, and you could also remind her, hey, Mom, do you remember when this is the creative funny side. And it can be a little snarky, but it can be funny too. Can we just be real here? Sometimes we just got to joke around a bit. It's like, Mom, what was it like 32 years ago when I came into your world? That's been a while ago, I'm sure. But what do you remember about that? And bring some lightness in. That can be helpful. You could also say, well, there's more. I'm going to pause because I think I just heard a weird noise. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Leslie.
Okay. Yeah, I had this problem with my dad. And, I think there's lots of ways you can handle it. You can handle it with humor, like Leanne was talking about. I think you can also handle it with appreciation. So I think you can say, Mom,
Gratitude.
you have been a great mom. And I know you always have my back and you have my best interest. And you have taught me well. And so I need you right now to let me figure it out for myself. Because I think you've given me all the tools I need to do that. Right? So instead of confronting her with what she's doing wrong, bless her for what she did right. She empowered you. She gave you wisdom. She inputted all that stuff in. And now you're saying, like my son said to me when he was 5 years, I could do it myself. Right? Mom, I can do it myself, because every child wants to be empowered. That's, Mom, you did your job. You taught me how to think for myself. You taught me how to solve my problems. Just like once you know how to wipe your own butt, you do it. You don't ask your mom to do it. And she doesn't try to do it anymore. She lets go of those things. And so to me, to show gratitude and appreciation for all that your mom taught you, and to say, Mom, I appreciate you have taught me well, and I have a good mind, and I can problem solve, and I appreciate your wisdom. And when I need it, I will definitely ask for it. But I'm a grown up now and I can do pretty good, and just because she may just be doing it out of anxiety or doing it out of habit, not necessarily because she doesn't think or trust that you know what to do. And so I would be gentle with that confrontation at first. And then if she continues to do it, I would say, Mom, remember I told you I needed you to just let me figure it out on my own. This is one of those times. I appreciate your wisdom, but you've inputted in me in 32 years. I think I've got it. So just kind of let me run with it for now. and see if she can respect your no then, after you've already kind of given her the soft touch. And then when she butts in again, you're just going to remind her, and that will help you to see, oh, you're right. So my son would do that. I would do that with my son, because I'm just like, he was my oldest, and he would go like this, like, zip it, Mom. And I would be like, okay. Because helping him was making him feel like I didn't trust that he could do it himself. And he said, Mom, you've given me everything I need to figure it out. Like, don't keep telling me I need to, balance my checkbook. I know I need to do that, and so it's just my anxiety of making sure he was doing it right. And so you just need to speak up for yourself, but do it. If your mom was a good mom, do it in the kindest way possible, and let's see if she can run with that. And then when she starts doing it again, just kind of give her that look like, okay, Mom, this is one of those moments we were talking about. I need you to let me do it.
Okay. Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because gratitude really is the antidote to somebody over giving advice and different things, is saying thank you for everything you've deposited into my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gratitude is always a beautiful go-to, no matter how challenging it is. And I think even, going back to the topic of our conversation tonight about navigating guilt and self-compassion, give yourself a little bit of gratitude. Thank yourself for all you've been through, and the fact that you showed up here. Your life giving to us by being here. Also, you're encouraging each other. So I just want to extend some gratitude to you, Leslie, for having me on here with you tonight. And thank you to all of you who trust us day in and day out. I do not take it lightly. And so my heart of gratitude for you, for your trust and confidence, for joining us and sharing your tender stories and your questions and your lives. Thank you.
And thank you, Leanne. I think that's a beautiful close. And I just want to encourage all of you to read the chat, because there's so much good advice in there too. I love Sarah saying, I'm learning to accept enough is enough, not needing to do more, worrying it's not good enough. All of that things that you're learning and sharing with one another. Cindy said, I gave my grandkids permission to tell me when I started lecturing. Yeah, sometimes we're just not aware of it. We mean well. We just want to help. And we sometimes do need that gentle reminder. And so just love this conversation that we've had tonight. Let me tell you when our next Facebook Live will be. We're not doing one tomorrow. I've got to drive back into my other house to get my hair cut. So our next Facebook Live isn't on my feed. Do you know when it is, Leanne? Usually they put it in here, but it's not in here.
I don't see it. I don't see it in the document. I can try and look here.
Let me just pull my calendar up. It is on Monday, the 7th, and we are going to talk about, so I will be on with Susan again, and we're going to be talking about what does it look like if you're choosing to stay well in a destructive marriage. What does that really mean? And what does that look like for you? Some of you need to stay because your children aren't ready to be uprooted, or you're not financially prepared to be on your own, and you're in this destructive marriage and you are a wreck and you're getting depleted and you're getting angry and you're getting resentful. What does it look like for you to take care of you? Not so much doing any more CPR on the marriage, but how do you stay well so that you don't have a breakdown and that you prepare for, if things get worse, you are ready to leave. What does that look like? So show up Monday at noon Eastern time, and Susan and I will answer that question in our Facebook Live. And just be remembering that this is our public Facebook page. So for that topic especially, you might be careful on what you put in the feed, because you certainly don't want your husband reading it or your mother-in-law reading it. That's why we put our workshop and our webinar on a site that's completely off social media. So you don't have to worry about what you put in the chat or what's going on, because everything is eliminated after the workshop is over with. It never is on social media. It never becomes anywhere. It doesn't even go in the replay. That's why coming live is so important, so that you get that and just see how valuable the chat has been today. You get all that at the workshop and all the answers to the questions and all of that, but that doesn't become part of the public record in the replay. So you just get the workshop itself if you don't show up live. So we really encourage you to show up. And I love that idea, Leanne. Thank you for suggesting a little watch party. If you have some friends who really could understand how women get so twisted in knots by trying to fix everybody else's problem. Just invite them to join you. They have to all sign up, and or just you sign up and have them come to your house and you can watch it together. But really watch this thing together, because then you would have a dialogue together with other women to talk it through as well. And that's powerful, as you can see, even in our conversation today. So thanks so much. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Leanne, for your help and support and your wisdom. Appreciate you. And we'll talk on Monday. All right.
Thanks.
God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.